The imperial palace of Emperor Vex stood tall and proud, shining like a perfect diamond against the deep purple skies of Centauri Prime. Sunlight bounced off its crystal walls, sending rainbow reflections across the capital city below. Inside these beautiful walls, however, things were not so peaceful. Fear and worry had spread among everyone who worked in the palace. 3 months had passed since someone tried to kill the emperor. They had failed, but something else had gone terribly wrong that day. The emperor's most treasured pet, a void dragon named Nyx, had been hurt during the attack. Not just physically, but something in its mind had broken too. Before the attack, Nyx had been the most beautiful creature anyone had ever seen. Its black scales used to shine with tiny spots of light, like looking at the night sky filled with stars. The dragon moved with grace despite its massive size, and the emperor loved to show it off to important visitors from across the galaxy. Now Nyx was different. Its once brilliant scales had turned dull gray, like ashes from a dead fire. Its eyes, which used to look like they held entire galaxies within them, now glowed with nothing but anger and pain. The dragon lashed out at anyone who came near, destroying parts of its enormous enclosure and injuring many handlers. The royal head vet, Dr. Allen, had tried everything he knew. The physical wounds have healed, he had reported to the emperor last week, but the mental damage, I've never seen anything like it. The assassination attempt happened right in front of Nyx. The explosions, the fighting, it was too much. Since then, the emperor had brought in experts from all corners of the galaxy. Beast masters who could tame even the most dangerous creatures of their worlds. People who could speak to animals with their minds. Experts who had studied dragons for decades. None had succeeded. In the main control room overlooking Nyx's habitat, alarms blared as screens flashed red. Palace workers rushed around trying to contain the latest disaster. The fourth Tamer has fallen, announced Royal Chamberlain Paul as the medical robots carried away what was left of the Andromedan Beast Master. The man had been considered the best in 3-star systems. Now he was just another failure. 53 minutes with the dragon. A new record at least. Emperor Vex sat on his floating throne, the light catching on his pale blue skin as he tapped his long fingers against the armrest. His face showed no emotion, but those who knew him could see the tension in his shoulders. The beast can be tamed, Vex said firmly. It must be. Your Majesty, said Paul carefully, perhaps it would be wiser to release the dragon. Or consider more permanent solutions. The Emperor's eyes flashed dangerously. Nyx is not just any pet. That dragon has been with me for 20 years. Its genetic line goes back to the founding of our empire. The cost to create such a perfect specimen was enormous. Of course, Your Majesty, but... Silence. The Emperor stood, his robes flowing around him like liquid metal. I will not give up on Nyx. Post the challenge to all 17 systems under our control. Paul bowed his head. What shall the challenge state, Your Majesty? The Emperor walked to the observation window and looked down at the habitat below. Through the reinforced glass, he could see Nyx pacing, its tail destroying a tree with each agitated swing. 1 hour with Nyx, he said coldly. Any being who can calm my dragon and remain alive for a full hour will receive 100,000 imperial credits and a position in the royal household. And if they fail? Paul asked. Then they die, said the Emperor simply. Make this clear in the announcement. I want only the most confident to try. I will not waste more time with fools who cannot handle my most precious possession. Paul nodded, trying to hide his shock. It will be done, Your Majesty. As the Chamberlain hurried away to prepare the galaxy-wide announcement, Emperor Vex continued to watch his once magnificent dragon. Somewhere inside that rage-filled creature was the loyal companion he had raised from an egg. He would find a way to bring it back no matter the cost. What no one in the Imperial Palace could have guessed was that the solution would come from the most unexpected place, and from a species the galaxy often overlooked. Jack Reynolds ran a damp cloth across the shimmering floor of the palace's western wing, wiping away invisible dust. The quantum marble surfaces were designed to never get dirty, yet the Emperor insisted they be polished twice daily. Jack's back ached as he worked. At 42, he wasn't as spry as he once had been, especially after 15 years as a combat medic in the Human Defense Force. He paused to catch his breath, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. Through the massive windows, he could see the transport ships coming and going from across the galaxy. Once, he traveled on those ships, rushing to battlefields where humans and aliens fought side by side against common enemies. Now, his world had shrunk to these polished halls and his small apartment in the workers' district. Reynolds. No breaks until the western wing is complete, barked Supervisor Kent, a fellow human who seemed eager to prove his worth to the alien overlords by pushing his own kind harder. "Yes, sir," Jack replied, returning to his polishing with a sigh. As he worked, palace guards rushed past, their boots leaving marks on his freshly cleaned floor. Jack bit back his frustration. Something had them excited, probably another fancy alien come to try taming the Emperor's dragon. Everyone in the palace talked about it. 4 elite tamers had died already, with dozens more waiting for their chance at glory and riches. Near the end of his 12-hour shift, Jack overheard raised voices in the adjacent hall. Curiosity got the better of him, and he quietly moved his cleaning cart closer to listen. "Another applicant for the Dragon Challenge, sir," said a palace guard, handing a document to Chamberlain Paul. The Chamberlain's eyes widened as he read. "A human?" he scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "From the maintenance staff, no less? Is this some kind of joke?" Jack held his breath. Someone from maintenance had applied? He wondered who would be so foolish. "The application was submitted properly," the guard replied stiffly. "According to the Emperor's decree, all applicants meeting basic requirements must be considered." "Basic requirements? Can he even read alien languages?" The Chamberlain laughed. "What could a human janitor possibly know about handling a void dragon? His name is Jack Reynolds, sir. Says here he was a combat medic for 15 years. Jack froze. That was his application they were discussing. He'd submitted it yesterday, never expecting it to reach the Chamberlain so quickly. "Fine," sighed Paul. "Add him to the list. The Emperor enjoys a good laugh, and watching a human janitor get incinerated might provide some entertainment after so many disappointing attempts by actual professionals." Jack slipped away before they noticed him eavesdropping. His heart raced as he finished his shift and hurried home through the crowded streets of the workers' district. The area housed all the human servants who kept the Imperial Palace running: cleaners, cooks, maintenance workers, and other lesser tasks deemed suitable for humans. His apartment building was old and cramped, but he kept his own unit spotlessly clean. Jack opened the door quietly, nodding to Mrs. Peters, the elderly neighbor who watched his daughter while he worked. "She's had a rough day," Mrs. Peters whispered. "The fever came back worse than before." "Thank you for staying with her," Jack said, pressing a few credit chips into the woman's hand, more than he could afford, but Mrs. Peters needed the money too. After she left, Jack entered the small bedroom where his daughter lay. Lily was just 10 years old, her face flushed with fever, her brown hair damp against her forehead. The sight of her made his chest tight with worry. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, sitting beside her bed. "How's my brave girl today?" Lily's eyes fluttered open. Despite her illness, she smiled when she saw him. "Dad?" she whispered. "You smell like cleaning solution again." "Occupational hazard," he joked, taking her small hand in his. "Did you eat anything today?" She shook her head slightly. "Not hungry." Jack checked the medical monitor beside her bed, a second-hand unit he'd repaired himself. Her temperature was dangerously high, and the readout showed her immune system was still failing to respond to the standard treatments. "The doctor called," Lily said weakly. "He wants you to come in tomorrow." Jack nodded, trying to keep his expression calm. Dr. Wilson had been clear last week. Lily needed specialized treatment for her rare immune disorder, treatment only available at the Central Medical Facility. Treatment that cost 50,000 credits. More money than Jack would earn in 5 years at his current job. "The treatment costs 50,000 credits, he whispered, stroking her hot cheek. "But don't worry. Dad has a plan." "What plan?" Lily asked, her eyes already drifting closed again. Jack pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Remember those stories I used to tell you? About the dragons I helped during the war? The ones with the broken wings?" she murmured sleepily. "That's right. Well, there's a dragon at the palace that needs help. And if I can help him, the Emperor will pay enough for your treatment." "But dragons are dangerous," Lily whispered, fighting to stay awake. Jack smiled, though his eyes were heavy with worry. "Not to me. I understand them. Now get some sleep, sweetheart. I need you strong enough to meet a real dragon soon." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Jack opened his old military pack. Inside was a worn medical kit, field journals from his days treating wounded creatures in combat zones, and a small vial of blue liquid, the last dose of a calming agent he'd developed for traumatized beasts. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. Tomorrow he would face the Void Dragon, and either save his daughter or die trying. The grand viewing gallery of the Imperial Palace was packed with alien dignitaries, royal officials, and elite warriors from across the galaxy. They had gathered to witness the latest challenger face the Emperor's broken dragon, a spectacle that had become the most talked about event in the 17 systems. When the massive doors opened to reveal Jack Reynolds, a human wearing ordinary maintenance worker clothes and carrying nothing but a small canvas bag, the entire gallery erupted in laughter. "Is this some kind of joke?" asked a tall, blue-skinned diplomat from Rigel. "The Emperor must be truly desperate if he's allowing the cleaning staff to attempt the challenge," remarked another. From his elevated throne, Emperor Vex leaned forward, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Chamberlain Paul struggled to maintain his composure. "Your Majesty, shall I stop this farce before it begins? The human will die within seconds." "No," said the Emperor. "Let him try. Perhaps his quick death will remind the others of the seriousness of my challenge." Below, Jack stood at the entrance to Nyx's enclosure. Through the reinforced glass door, he could see the massive void dragon pacing at the far end of the habitat. Its dull gray scales absorbed the light rather than reflecting it, and occasional sparks of cosmic energy crackled along its spine when it moved. The creature was at least 40 feet long from snout to tail, with wings that could span twice that when fully extended. Jack took a deep breath. He thought of Lily lying in her bed, fighting for her life. For her he would face any danger. A mechanical voice announced, "Challenge participant, Jack Reynolds, human, maintenance level 3. Previous record, 53 minutes, 8 seconds. Fatalities to date, 4. Severe injuries, 22. The door slid open with a hiss. Jack stepped inside. "Begin the timer," ordered the Emperor. 1 hour. As Jack entered the enclosure, the dragon immediately sensed his presence. Nyx turned, its massive head swinging around, yellow eyes narrowing to slits. A low growl rumbled through the habitat, making the very air vibrate. The spectators fell silent, leaning forward in anticipation of the violence to come. Most previous challengers had approached with weapons, shields, or psychic restraints. Some had tried to dominate the dragon with shows of force. Others had attempted to use technology to subdue it. All had failed. Jack did something different. Instead of approaching the snarling dragon, he calmly walked to a spot about 20 feet away from Nyx, then sat down cross-legged on the floor. The dragon's growl intensified, but Jack showed no fear. He opened his canvas bag and removed a small, worn medical kit. The kind used in battlefield situations. "What is he doing?" whispered someone in the gallery. Jack looked directly at the dragon. When he spoke, his voice was soft but clear, as if he were talking to a friend rather than a deadly creature. "Hey there," he said to Nyx. "My name's Jack. I was on Proxima 4 during the rebellion 7 years ago. There was this building collapse during an artillery strike." He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a jagged, star-shaped scar that ran from his elbow to his wrist. "Got this when I was trying to pull a family from the rubble. Still hurts sometimes, especially when the weather changes." The dragon's tail lashed back and forth, scraping against the reinforced wall of the enclosure. But it didn't charge. Its yellow eyes remained fixed on Jack. "I was a combat medic," Jack continued, opening his medical kit and laying out a few simple tools. "Not just for people. We had these big transport animals, kind of like earth horses but with 6 legs. They'd get hurt in the fighting. Scare. Sometimes they'd lash out, hurt their riders or themselves." As he talked, Jack slowly removed his uniform jacket, revealing more scars on his arms and shoulders. "The military vets wanted to put them down. Said they were too dangerous. But I figured they weren't bad animals. Just in pain. Scare. Didn't understand what was happening to them." In the viewing gallery, confusion spread. This was not the spectacle of violence they had expected. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his expression changing from boredom to curiosity. 5 minutes, announced the automated timer. "Participant survival, confirmed." Jack continued talking to Nyx, his voice steady and calm. "There was this one transport animal, we called him Big Blue. He'd seen his whole herd killed in a bombing. Wouldn't let anyone near him after that. Kicked a handler so hard it broke 3 ribs. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small container. Opening it carefully, he showed it to the dragon. "This is burn salve. I made it myself. Works on most species." Jack applied some of the salve to one of his own scars. The trick with Big Blue wasn't forcing him to obey. It was showing him we understood his pain. That we weren't going to hurt him more. For the first time since the assassination attempt 3 months ago, Nyx tilted its massive head to one side in what appeared to be curiosity. The constant growl faded to a softer rumble. 15 minutes, announced the timer. In the gallery, the laughter had completely stopped. Even the Chamberlain watched in stunned silence. "Look at that," whispered Dr. Allen, the royal veterinarian. The neural monitors are showing a change in its brain patterns. Jack slowly stood up, still keeping his distance from the dragon. I bet you've got pain too, he said softly. Not just on the outside. The kind that sticks with you, keeps you up at night. Makes you lash out because sometimes hurting others feels better than hurting alone. The dragon's tail had stopped lashing. Its yellow eyes remained fixed on Jack, but the murderous rage seemed to have dimmed, replaced by something else, something that looked almost like recognition. 20 minutes, announced the timer. In the gallery someone whispered, impossible? But Jack wasn't paying attention to his audience. His entire focus was on the wounded creature before him. And for the first time in months, Nyx wasn't thinking about attacking. It was listening. Time seemed to stretch in the dragon's enclosure. For the spectators who had come expecting a quick, violent death, the past 50 minutes had been both confusing and mesmerizing. They had watched in silence as the human maintenance workers slowly gained the trust of the Emperor's broken dragon. 58 minutes, announced Chamberlain Paul, his voice cracking with disbelief. The human lives. The words rippled through the viewing gallery. Impossible. No one had lasted this long. The previous record holder, an Andromedan beast master with centuries of experience, had reached 53 minutes before Nyx had torn him apart. In the enclosure, Jack now knelt just 3 feet from the massive dragon. Over the past hour, he had slowly closed the distance between them, moving inch by inch while continuing his gentle, one-sided conversation. He had talked about his time as a combat medic, about wounded creatures he had healed on battlefields across the galaxy, about his understanding of pain both physical and mental. Nyx had watched him the entire time, yellow eyes tracking his every move, but the murderous rage had gradually faded from its gaze. It's responding to his voice patterns, whispered Dr. Allen to the Emperor. The low, steady tone is having a calming effect on its nervous system. 20 minutes earlier, Jack had noticed something the others couldn't see from their vantage point, an area of discolored scales beneath the dragon's neck, partially hidden by the massive bone structure of its jaw. Now, with careful movements, he reached into his medical kit and removed a small bottle containing a clear liquid. I'm going to help with that wound under your jaw, Jack explained to Nyx, showing the bottle. This might sting a little at first, but then it will feel better. I promise. The dragon made a low rumbling sound, but didn't pull away when Jack carefully lifted a large scale to reveal an angry, infected wound beneath. Just as I thought, Jack murmured. Shrapnel. Probably from the assassination attempt. Been festering all this time. In the viewing gallery, Dr. Allen pressed his face against the glass in shock. There's a wound? How did we miss that in our scans? The scale density in that region would have blocked standard imaging, said another royal veterinarian, frantically checking data on his tablet. And no one could get close enough for a visual inspection. Jack gently dabbed the clear solution on the wound. Nyx flinched slightly but remained still. As Jack worked, he continued talking, his voice soft and reassuring. My Lily loves stories about dragons, Jack murmured. She says they're not monsters, just misunderstood. Smart kid, my Lily. Been sick for months now, but still keeps her books about magical creatures by her bed. Says someday she's going to help animals like I used to. The dragon's breathing had slowed. The occasional sparks of cosmic energy that had been crackling along its spine had stopped completely. She'd love to meet you, Jack continued. Once you're feeling better, of course. She's got this theory that dragons can understand every language but choose only to speak to people they trust. Jack carefully extracted a small metal fragment from the wound, a piece of shrapnel that had embedded itself deep in the dragon's flesh during the assassination attempt. He held it up for Nyx to see. There's your problem, big guy. Been digging deeper every time you moved your head. No wonder you've been in such a bad mood. 59 minutes, announced the automated timer. A hush fell over the viewing gallery. In just one more minute, Jack Reynolds would become the first being to survive the Emperor's challenge. After cleaning the wound thoroughly, Jack applied a healing gel from his kit. Throughout the procedure, Nyx remained perfectly still, its massive body relaxed in a way it hadn't been for months. There you go, Jack said, packing away his supplies. That should start feeling better right away. Then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, Nyx slowly lowered its enormous head until it was level with Jack's face. The dragon's nostrils flared slightly as it sniffed at him, taking in his scent. Jack remained calm, maintaining eye contact with the creature. It's okay, he said softly. I know what it's like to carry pain no one else can see. As the timer hit 59 minutes and 30 seconds, Nyx did something that made the entire gallery gasp in unison. It gently pressed its massive snout against Jack's outstretched palm. The touch was delicate, almost tender, as if the dragon was afraid of hurting the human. Jack smiled, running his hand along the smooth scales. "Good job," he whispered. "First step's always the hardest." Around the enclosure, the neural monitors that had been displaying chaotic, aggressive patterns for months suddenly shifted. The angry red spikes gave way to smooth blue waves, the signature of a calm, content void dragon. Emperor Vex rose from his throne, his eyes wide. For the first time in years, his regal composure cracked. "Impossible," he whispered. "1 hour," announced the automated timer. "Challenge complete. Participant, Jack Reynolds. Status, alive." The viewing gallery erupted, not in laughter this time but in thunderous applause. Alien dignitaries turned to each other in amazement, royal officials hurriedly took notes, and even Chamberlain Paul stood open-mouthed in shock. But inside the enclosure, Jack didn't react to his achievement. His entire focus remained on Nyx, whose massive head now rested gently against his shoulder like a tired child finding comfort after a long nightmare. "See," Jack said softly, stroking the dragon's snout. "Sometimes all we need is someone who understands our pain." The morning sun cast a golden glow over the imperial capital as crowds gathered for what many were calling the most important event in decades. Banners fluttered in the gentle breeze, displaying the new symbol of the Interspecies Trauma Recovery Center, a human hand and dragon wing overlapping in perfect harmony. 3 months had passed since the day Jack Reynolds had accomplished the impossible. In that time his life had transformed completely. From a simple maintenance worker wiping floors in the palace's western wing, he had become one of the most respected figures in the Emperor's court. "Hurry up, Dad," called Lily, Jack's 10-year-old daughter, as she raced ahead of him toward the grand ceremonial platform. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement and health, a stark contrast to the pale, fever-stricken child she had been just months ago. Jack smiled as he watched her run. The 50,000 credits he'd earned by completing the Emperor's challenge had been enough to pay for her complete treatment. The rare immune disorder that had threatened her life was now in full remission, her strength returning more each day. "Slow down, kiddo," Jack called after her. "The ceremony won't start without us." He adjusted the collar of his new uniform, deep blue with silver trim, bearing the insignia of his position, Royal Beast Healer, a title created specifically for him. The uniform still felt strange after years in maintenance coveralls, but he was getting used to it. As they approached the ceremonial platform, the crowd parted respectfully. Aliens of all shapes and sizes nodded in greeting, many reaching out to touch Jack's sleeve or shoulder as if for luck. His story had spread throughout the 17 systems, growing with each telling until he had become something of a legend. Chamberlain Paul greeted them at the steps to the platform. The same man who had once laughed at the idea of a human janitor attempting the Dragon Challenge now bowed deeply. "Healer Reynolds, young Miss Reynolds, the Emperor awaits you." Behind the platform, in a specially constructed shelter, Nyx rested. The Void Dragon had undergone an amazing transformation in the past 3 months. Its scales had regained their cosmic shimmer, now gleaming with tiny points of light that seemed to mirror the galaxy itself. Its eyes, once burning with rage, were clear and intelligent. When Jack and Lily approached, Nyx lifted its massive head in greeting, making a soft rumbling sound that vibrated the air around them. "Good morning to you too, big guy," Jack said, reaching up to scratch under the dragon's chin, right where he had found and removed the shrapnel 3 months ago. The wound had healed completely, leaving only a faint mark on the otherwise perfect scales. Lily ran straight to the dragon without fear, wrapping her arms around one of its massive forelegs. "We're going to fly today, Nyx," Dad promised. Jack laughed. "Only if you behave during the ceremony." A trumpet fanfare announced the arrival of Emperor Vex. The crowd fell silent as the ruler of 17 systems took his place on the platform. Jack and Lily quickly moved to stand beside him, with Nyx following to position itself behind them. "Citizens of the Galactic Hegemony," began the Emperor, his voice amplified to reach even the furthest corners of the gathering. "Today marks not just the opening of the Interspecies Trauma Recovery Center, but a new understanding between the many peoples of our empire." He gestured to the massive building behind them, a beautiful structure of crystal and living plants that would serve as both hospital and research facility. "For too long we have viewed the human species as suitable only for simple tasks. Their lack of physical strength, their short lifespans, their limited technological achievements, all these led us to underestimate their true potential." The Emperor turned to Jack with a respectful nod. 3 months ago this man, Jack Reynolds, showed us what our advanced technologies could not. That true healing requires more than science and medicine. It requires patience, empathy, and understanding, qualities that humans possess in abundance. Jack felt his face grow warm at the praise. He had never been comfortable in the spotlight. What Healer Reynolds accomplished with Nyx was not merely the taming of a beast, continued the Emperor. He recognized that my dragon was not broken but wounded, not just in body but in spirit. Where our finest veterinarians saw only aggression to be controlled, he saw pain to be healed. The crowd murmured in agreement. Many had witnessed Jack's approach through recordings that had spread throughout the Empire. At this new facility, beings from all species will work together, combining the empathetic healing methods of humans with the advanced technologies of other worlds. Already, we have seen remarkable results with traumatized creatures from 5 different systems. Lily squeezed her father's hand excitedly as the Emperor announced, and now, to demonstrate the success of Healer Reynolds' methods, I invite you to witness something unprecedented. At a signal from Jack, Nyx lowered its massive body to the ground. Jack helped Lily climb onto the dragon's back, securing her in a specially designed harness, then mounted behind her. The crowd gasped. No one had ever ridden a void dragon before. Ready? Jack asked his daughter. Lily nodded eagerly, her eyes shining with excitement. Ready? Jack patted Nyx's neck. Let's show them what we can do, big guy. With a gentle push of its powerful legs, Nyx lifted off from the ground. Its enormous wings unfolded, spanning nearly 80 feet from tip to tip, and with a few powerful beats they rose into the air. The assembled representatives of 17 species watched in awe as the dragon, once so dangerous no one could approach it, soared gracefully above them with a human child laughing joyfully on its back. Perhaps, said Emperor Vex softly to himself as he watched them fly, these humans, physically weaker than most galactic citizens, carry a strength the Empire needs most. As Nyx circled the new healing center, cosmic energy trailing from its wings like stardust, a new era began, one where understanding pain became the first step toward healing it.